Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brad from Headbangers Podcast. Today we've got Tom from Dwarrowdelf. They've released an amazing new album this year called The Fallen Leaves. We dive a lot into that and the meanings behind it, as a lot of it is a metaphor for what was going on in his life at the time, and portrayed really well. Talk about the importance of the artwork, which is obviously a masterpiece on there, and just the importance of like an artist that really understands the vision that they were going for. As well as we nerd out, obviously, about Lord of the Rings. We talk about what character you want to go on a drink with, amongst other stuff as well. So yeah, stay tuned, enjoy. If you like the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you listen on streaming service, don't forget to leave us a rating. This helps out in the algorithm. Without further ado, let's begin. Welcome back to the Headbangers Podcast, where your host Nathan and Brad. Here today we're joined by Tom from Dwarrowdelf. How are you doing, man? To start off with.
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So we like to start with a little icebreaker on the show. What's your funniest gig or tour story that you can recall?
Uh, Most memorable tour story is sort of like a non-story. I was with my power metal band, Battleborn, and we were due to play a show in Manchester, travelling down from Glasgow, and our van exploded at about
What?
sort of half an hour outside of Glasgow. We just stopped at a service station and we're just about to rejoin the motorway, and suddenly the engine just cut out. And you know, you're like, fuck, what do we do now? Q sort of pulling up on the side of the road, AA being called out, and it was the Queen's, like, do you remember there was like two bank holidays in a row on a Thursday and Friday? So
Yeah, I
everyone was on
remember that.
like 5 days of holiday, and it was in the middle of that. So none of the repair shops were open or anything. So we ended up sending one guy down on public transport to Southampton to get the next biggest car we owned. The rest of us took like a taxi back to Glasgow Airport to rent an enterprise car, and it was just a long day. We didn't make it to Manchester, but we did make it to the next show on the tour, so there's a happy ending. But yeah, that was. Oh, and the van nearly got stolen by some men halfway through us being on the side of the road. So it was.
Someone's hexed your van or something, like what's
Yeah, it
going on?
was. That was our first tour as well. It was like, I hope this doesn't happen every time. But yeah,
Oh
that was.
man.
Yeah, the show that never was.
When you say like exploded, like do you mean like actually just
So we pulled up on the side of the road and then opened the hood. We were like, what's going on here? And there was smoke coming out of it, and then there was oil everywhere. And I think the van, like, they couldn't fix it. The engine had packed in, and yeah, the smoke
wow.
means that I can say explosion. That makes the story
It's
better.
crazy there.
It's crazy though that someone tried stealing. It's like, mate, if you can get that started,
Yeah,
like,
you know what?
have
Fair
it,
play, have
fucking
it.
have
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Like,
yeah. They tried to, like, these two guys pulled up in a battered van and they said, "Oh, guys, how you doing? This has happened to us loads. Do you want a tow up to that lay-by?" Because we were sort of just parked quite precariously on a corner, and there was a lay-by sort of 50 meters ahead. And so they tied their van to our van. One of our guys was like steering it, and then they drove off, and we saw them. I was stood on the side of the road where the van had been parked, and we saw them get to the lay-by. It's just like, oh, they're not slowing down at all. And then they sort of turned a corner, and the rope snapped, and so suddenly our van was just hurtling through the middle of the road, and our guy had to put his foot on the brakes, and the guys didn't come back because I think they thought we've made an attempt at robbery there. We'll now go away. But yeah, that was
Man.
pretty wild.
that is crazy. One thing that I wanted to ask you, because I know the name of the band is obviously based off of Lord of the Rings. Now,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a bit so coming off the back of like the icebreaker question. I thought it'd be great to fit this one in. If you could pick any Lord of the Rings character to have a drink with, or just willing to be existing for the day, who would that character be and why?
Oh, it's got to be Gandalf or Theoden, I reckon. Obviously, both of them have lived a good life. They've got some stories to tell. Um, Excellent beards, which is, always a good thing. Yeah, Gandalf would probably just two, thank you. But I think Theoden would he'd be down for a drink. Um,
Yeah. No, it's
like
good, man, yeah.
the epic pre-battle speech he does in Return of the King. It's like, if I was feeling a bit down that day and I was having a drink with old King Theoden, I reckon he could pump you up. He'd be motivational. You'd come out of that drink feeling good about yourself.
Oh yeah, like he
Yeah.
convinced everyone in that army to be like, right, there's a like pretty big chance we're gonna fucking die here,
Yeah,
and he was like, right, everyone, fuck that though, like let's just do it, and they all went, yeah, fuck it.
yeah,
Like, so yeah, he could put. I reckon he could proper pump you up. I think I'd probably pick Gandalf as well, because like
yeah.
you'd probably walk out of there going, he told me some mad shit. There were like fucking dragons involved, dwarves, elves, yeah, like,
Although knowing Gandalf, like you might come out of that set on a perilous quest to go and do something that you have no business doing. Like he pops around to Bilbo's for a drink, and suddenly Bilbo's on a quest to steal some dragon's treasure.
Yeah. There's
Does the
always a
same for
hidden agenda
Frodo.
with Gandalf, isn't there?
There is, yeah. But then again, I'd be up for an adventure.
I feel like if I just wanted to get absolutely smashed, I'd just go with Gimli. Like I feel like I need like sort of dwarf, like Gimli would have Gimli would be good for a good night out, wouldn't
Yeah. Do you reckon you could beat him in the drinking
he?
challenge
No.
that he does with Legolas?
I'm terrible at downing drinks. I always have been for some reason. Like
Oh no.
beer's probably the best one, but yeah, I'm a really slow downer. So like, whenever I was in uni and stuff, I could never keep up. But yeah, I'd definitely try and give him a run for his money. But
You've got to,
yeah,
yeah,
I'd
give it
probably
a
end up on
go.
alcohol poison or something.
well,
You
I
know,
feel
that's,
like Gimli, statistically, he's probably gonna start a fight at some point, and it's gonna be like, I don't know if I can back you up, Gimli, because you're kind of a dick. Like,
Yeah, that goes for all dwarfs, doesn't
yeah, get two of them in a room and chaos is
it?
assured.
Yeah, unless it's Thorin. Thorin seems pretty chill, but probably a bit boring to be on a drink with, wouldn't
Yeah, yeah. Unless you give him some gold, and then he'll just sort of go into a corner and like start stroking it and getting all weird about it.
he? I want to get into obviously Fallen Leaves. I absolutely love that album because it was my
Cheers,
first
man.
introduction to you guys, and like everyone was just like, "Oh my God, the new Dwarrowdelf album." I was like, "I have to check these guys out." Um, and then so I put it on. I really like the fact that I know the concept for this one is a bit more like a real topic, obviously with metaphors, obviously using
Yeah.
you know, Dwarven themes, but was you using like your own hardships and like paint it on the canvas. Did you find it relieving doing that?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the most cathartic thing I've ever done, really. So especially the first couple of songs were written sort of in the heat of sort of some romantic turmoil I was going through at the time, and it was very much like don't really know how to what to do about this. I've got all these feelings and emotions and all of that. Wrote some music, some lyrics came very naturally, and just sort of it was a really healthy way to deal with and process those emotions. And then the rest of the album kind of followed suit, which was very different from the all the previous work I'd done on the project, which was all very much like I'm not telling any personal stories here. Really, it was all like Lord of the Rings stuff. So
Do you think like by doing that then, because obviously it was a different, like, a bit of a stray away from the previous albums, do you think that now going forward, that's the kind of route you want to take with the material going forward, or do you think it just when the time is right? You know what I mean?
yeah, I think definitely musically, The Fallen Leaves is the direction I want to be taking Dwarrowdelf in. I think it follows on fairly naturally, kind of from the previous album, Even Star, but it's definitely it's a jump forward in a lot of ways, sort of incorporating a lot of new things, and I think that's where the Dwarrowdelf sound sits quite comfortably now. So I think a future album would sound like it. In terms of topic, it's hard to say. Kind of it came together very quickly and very naturally in the space of that period of my life, and I'm happy to say that I'm now a happier man, so that's good. But it means that I don't have any great sadness to write about. So just need to have a great tragedy before me, and then then we'll get a cracking follow-up album. But yeah, I think when the time's right, the time will be right. I guess I'll kind of know.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
and on that sort of like that subject, did you find that like grounding it and basing it off your own emotions, was there like any like anxiety sort of attached to that? Obviously, because it is quite an intimate thing, like
Mm,
writing about how you feel, because it lets the like people in and look into the door a little bit. So
yeah.
was there anxiety with that?
Not too much. I think I very cunningly hidden it under layers of Elden Ring themed metaphor, so people would have to read the lyrics quite carefully to figure out what was going on, and I'm pretty sure no one was going to do that. Um, but I think there was the person who it was about. I'm still on good terms with, which is nice, and I did show it to them before I showed it to anyone else, just saying that thing that happened to us a few years ago now. I've written this album. It's kind of loosely based on some of that. I just wanted to check that they were comfortable with it first, and they were really good about it. So that kind of cleared up any sort of reservations I might have had, and I just thought I'm lucky to have created this brilliant album, and I was just quite excited for people to hear it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really cool that, to be fair. Very adult of you to do that. I mean, you look at like some other genres, or maybe just like even in metal itself, some people do like a song directly about someone just completely slamming them. There'll be no apology
Yeah,
or no permission. So it's really cool that you did that. Um, did they like the album? Did they listen to
yeah,
it?
yeah, they did. Their favorite track is a surprising one. I think it's Escape to the Dream Spire, which sort of has the ending, which is quite. That's probably like the rawest lyric at the end of that song. But yeah, no, I don't know if they are the sort of person who can understand harsh vocals, so they might have completely gone over their head. Could be completely fine.
It's got like a
oh,
nice sort of like with the album though, like the turns is quite cathartic to listen to, and it's quite relaxing at the same time as it being quite brutal, which is nice. It's very like layered with atmosphere. So yeah, I think it's nice the way it came together. It wasn't what I was expecting when I went into it, but very
That's
happy
good.
with it.
Yeah, I think I've seen it referred to as every single genre, like on the internet. Like some people are saying, "Oh, it's clearly power metal with black metal influences," and some people are like, "No, it's a death metal album." Um, so some people say folk. It's like I've achieved something there because I've got people confused what the subgenre might be. So that
oh yeah,
means it's something different, which
oh yeah,
was
like
kind of the aim because it's always been an atmospheric project at its core, but bringing in other elements. So I was quite keen to throw in a bit of doom, throw in a bit of death.
yeah. I definitely agree with that because I remember when we was prepping for the interview, I was like, what genre would you put it under? Because I was listening to it and like I got so many different layers. I can't remember the name of the song, but it starts off. It sounds like a sort of doom, like the soundtrack. The
Mm.
riffs gave me that sort of vibe, and I was there like, I was like, it's works all really well together. But I genuinely don't know how to be like, oh, this is a black metal band, or it melds them all in a way where it's like, no, it's just a bit of everything, and it works all well together.
Yeah, I think if people ask, I just say atmospheric metal because that's kind of the closest you can get without throwing too many labels at it.
And that's the best thing though. Like, I think if people, and we always say this in the podcast, like if people can pigeonhole you straight away. I mean, fair enough, if that's the kind of vibe you want to go for, but when someone can't, I think that's when you've created something truly special.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember like even Nathan's like, I'm getting some Devin Townsend vibes in there. I'm just like, really? Because obviously it's not what I got, but then I get like it does have that sort of epic feel to it, and I guess Devin is quite experimental as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
I can't remember what bit the game. There was just like a chorus that I was like, it reminded me of like a Devin Townsend sort of chorus. And
Oh,
like I was like, this is really good because I've been going through a strapping young lad sort of like phase at the moment. So I was like, I think because I was listening to a lot of that, I was like picking up on it like a little bit more.
yeah.
But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a really good mix of just about everything, but not done too much in one way, too much in the other way. Just done tastefully enough in each sort of way, where it was like nothing sort of overstayed its welcome. I found that the composition of the album was really really good as well. Like how the piano notes within the ashes, the embers still burn, fits really well with the Journey to the Dawn. Um,
Yeah.
like the intro to that song. So one thing I want to ask you as well is was composition of the album always at the forefront when writing, or was it a case of you've written the songs, you pieced them together, and you figured out ways to go, okay, I can follow that into that, I can follow that into that a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and means I get to tell you one of my favorite fun facts about the album. So there was a single I released back in 2020 or 21 called "Cold Lie the Ashes," and that was actually the first song I wrote in the period of said turmoil, and that was a very reactionary, written in 24 hours, recorded, thrown out there. In hindsight, I could have polished it up a lot more, but I keep it as its own separate thing, as like this is the moment that I was in, Um, and I sort of took some of the notes from that and put them into the final track on this album. So in the final track, there's a big ambient interlude, and then it goes back into metal. And those sort of that melody there, I then put into the intro track to try and tie the album together. So when you're listening to the final song, you want to go back and listen to the first song. And also, like, the intro is sort of setting up what the finale is going to be. And I also always knew that Journey to Dawn was going to be the first track on the album, or the first track proper, I guess. So yeah, so definitely that was haven't got that intro track. It was like an intro track's got to justify itself. So it's justifying itself by linking into the finale and also sort of working with the first track proper. So yeah, I think it's definitely intentional. I think there are some tracks, I guess, like sort of the middle ones, like, didn't necessarily always set out for them for like track 3 to be track 3. It's sort of that was more of a later decision, but the sort of the bookends were very much always going to be placed in those areas.
Oh yeah, it definitely shows like a lot of thought, because I think with a lot of people when they're writing tracks, especially like maybe on their own or anything like that, I think a lot of thought around the actual composition of it is kind of like a final step. But I found that when I've spoke to people that have been like, no, I kind of always have it in mind. Do you find that the end product's a lot better because they'll go, well, I know where I want to begin, I know where I want to end. The middle I'll work out on my own time. But if you can just do that, it makes a way better product.
Yeah, I think especially when it's or is it a loose concept album? When there's a story you're trying to tell, it's quite important to know where you're starting and finishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of like films and stuff as well, because if you don't know your beginning and your end, I think it shows, especially with,
Mm.
like, a lot of horror films and stuff. I feel like a lot of the times they just don't know where they want it to end, and then it just ends up being a sloppy finish. But yeah, I agree though. Concept albums, it's basically is a movie but a musical form, isn't it? So you want to
Yeah,
make sure that it's got a good arc structure to it.
absolutely.
So I want to ask, and I know we've kind of touched on, obviously you've put a lot of different genres into Fallen Leaves, um, but you're also a man with a lot of bands on his CV.
Yeah.
You've got Battleborn, you've got
Yeah.
like a Dwarven Slam
Oh
project, you've got
gosh,
like
yeah.
your black metal projects. So like with that, do you find it like refreshing to put all these, work on all these bands and slowly learn things from each project and then kind of feed it in? I guess Dwarrowdelf is probably, I don't know, because I've listened to Battleborn as well, but it seems the one that you've implemented most of these genres into one. But do you find it refreshing to have these different projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dwarrowdelf is something I started back in uni, so it's probably the longest running one that's still active. And because it's a solo project, it's kind of a lot. I can do whatever I want with it, as evidenced by this album, which has a ridiculous number of subgenres thrown into the blender. Whereas something like Battleborn, that's with 4 other people. It's a collaborative process. We're all sort of working together to make something else. So it's quite nice. I have those 2 very different outlets. And something like the Dwarven Slam Band, that was a very funny drunk idea that has accidentally done quite well. But yeah, I think, and then yeah, I've got a few other sort of scattered outlets. Some of them under different names, some of them under my name, and it's good to have whatever mood I'm in to write. Have something to, I have somewhere to put it, and if I don't, I just make a new one, and I find that very very freeing, I think.
No, I respect
And
that.
like from working with all these different bands, how do you sort of like, once you're done writing with one and you're ready to start with writing the other, how do you sort of take your mindset out of that? Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because like sometimes I might sit down to write. Okay, I'm going to write Dwarrowdelf 5 now. But if I'm only sort of in the mood to listen to extremely raw black metal or something like that, it's not going to work. So you kind of have to go with. I just sort of go with what the feeling is to write as well. I've got a lot of sort of Spotify playlists like Dwarrowdelf Inspirations, Battleborn inspirations and stuff like that if I want to try and chivvy a mood into landing. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just kind of got to go with whatever the factors influencing it might be. Like if it's a really sunny day, or I don't know, like there are so many factors that affect what kind of mood you might be into, right? So you kind of just got to go with it and play to those strengths. And I've had days where it's been like, oh, I've been really struggling with writing the final lyrics for Dwarrowdelf, and then suddenly a weekend will happen and I've written 3 songs worth of lyrics in that weekend. It's like sometimes it just clicks.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, I definitely understand that because there's been times where I've tried writing lyrics, and I think if you think I'm gonna write some lyrics today, your brain immediately goes, "I've got fuck all for you."
Yeah.
Like, so like when you're not thinking about it, then your brain goes, "Hey, remember those lyrics you're trying to write 3 months ago? I've got something for you now. Here you go." And you're like, sick. Like,
Yeah, and sometimes all you need is that first line to slot into place, and then you go, "Oh, that's the good bit," and then the rest of it falls into place, and then you
yeah,
feel very great about it, and then you read it back the next day and go, "What was I thinking? That's awful." But
I always find I'll have like I'll be like, "Oh, I want to say this bit before this bit in the song." And then I just build the lyrics around that because I'm like, that bit I know is gonna be sick.
yeah,
But I was like, everything in between, I'm just gonna have to work out how the fuck I get to there from there. But
yeah,
yeah, I completely understand you with sometimes you just have to wait until the time comes.
Yeah,
lyrics are
definitely.
always the last thing as well. Like I've always write them at the end, mainly because I'm dreading like having to just sit there in front of a blank Word document and go, "Oh, for fuck's sake."
Oh yeah, I think like it's interesting hearing people how they approach it because I know people that always weird. What to me it's weird because I'd always write lyrics after. But I know people that will write lyrics before and then build the track around what the vocal pattern is, which is an interesting way of doing it, but it's
Yeah,
completely an alien idea to me.
yeah, it would be. Yeah, I wouldn't know how to do that,
Yeah,
but
it's just
fair
like
play to them.
how do you go from Z to back to A? Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel natural at all.
Yeah, definitely. So do you remember your first introduction to fantasy? Like the first thing you kind of fell in love with fantasy wise, whether it's a
Ooh.
movie or it's a book, but
I mean, it's got to be Lord of the Rings at some point, I'm sure. Um, Although it might have been because there was that Chronicles of Narnia film that came
Oh,
out.
I love that
Um,
film.
yeah,
that
great.
one, that must have been like 2003 or something like that, and I really loved that film. Watched that a lot. Um, Been one of those, and because I think Lord of the Rings came out and Narnia came out, and all like the Disney people were like fantasy's the thing. Let's make loads of that. And I remember reading the Aragon books as well. I really loved them when I was younger. Sort of, so yeah, one of those 3 would probably be the first introduction to fantasy, and like instantly loved it. Instantly loved the genre. Like have never sort of stopped loving it really. So it never took me, didn't take time to win me over or anything like that. I was like, yep, swords, dragons, sign me up.
Yeah, no, me too. Yeah, it's always been a thing. Even now, like I love like fantasy stuff. Like whenever most books that I read, it's always going to be fantasy. I've been trying to wrap my brain because obviously when we give a question, we always try and think of an answer. And when we get put back to us, like we have no idea what to say.
Yeah,
But I think, yeah, it probably would have been Lord of the Rings. Trying to think what else. There's nothing coming to mind really at the moment. What about you, Nathan?
Mine
Depends if we're
was
talking like medieval fantasy as well, or we're talking like this
oh
sci-fi as
yeah,
well, because that'd be a different story.
yeah. Sci-fi. I feel like Star Wars prequels. They were obviously the right time for all of us growing up. I'm guessing.
yeah, like that's the thing. So like mine, Star Wars gave me an inkling of it with a bit of a sci-fi. Star Wars, when you look at it, the original stuff is like realistically, it's a fantasy movie wearing the coat of a sci-fi film.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like it's basically fucking space wizards and space cats. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that's how you look at it. So that gave me the inkling I might like shit like that. And then my mum made me watch Lord of. Well, I didn't say made me. It was just like on ITV one day, and I came down. I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
yeah,
I was like instantly hooked.
yeah.
Um, and then I think the Narnia films as well. They came out. I went to see all of them in the cinema when I was a kid, and like that shit. To be fair, like I was always obsessed with like knights, swords,
Yeah.
shit like that. Like it's just anything like that. It does something to my brain where I'm like, yes, If I could wear that every day, if I could wear a full suit of plate armor, I would
Yeah.
fucking wear it. But yeah, that's probably where it started for me personally.
What about more
Yeah,
modern stuff? Have you guys watched like The Witcher on Netflix?
yeah,
And
love The
yeah,
Witcher.
yeah.
Yeah, I really do love The Witcher. I met someone recently that didn't know The Witcher was a game or a book, but
Wow.
just watched the show, and I was there like, what?
Yeah, someone at work was like, "Oh yeah, did you know it's actually based on a game?" And I was like, "Well, actually, do you know that it's based on a book?"
I actually only first played The Witcher 3 in either the first or second lockdown because I didn't have a gaming console for quite a long time.
It holds
And
up though.
I played it and was just like, well, I finished it and was like, okay, well, that's the greatest thing I've ever played. I need to play it instantly again. Because I played Skyrim to death back in the day,
Oh, Skyrim's
and
great.
Witcher was probably the game a game hadn't grabbed me like that since Skyrim.
I'll tell you what's even better though than Witcher and Skyrim. It's Baldur's Gate 3. My
Oh,
God.
I've not played it. I've
I've
not.
I had a telling off from my girlfriend from playing that too much. But it's just so addictive. It's like a bit like D&D but in a game. And I know it's not really Nathan's thing because you're not really into like turn-based games, but I keep telling him like you
Yeah,
need to play it because I haven't played many games like that except from like Final Fantasy, but like Baldur's Gate is quite easy to pick up and it's just the whole world building. It's a massive game. You just get lost at the characters really well developed and you like see them on the journey. You can take them on any path that you want. If you want an evil crew, you can do that. But yeah,
Nice.
it's super, super fun.
yeah. I find turn based. It just it just doesn't get me. Yeah, I mean, like it's just like if I like to feel awesome in a game. Like I like to feel like I'm like that because I am in the game. You're the main character. You want to feel like that. I find turn-based games don't do that for me. Where it's like, right, I've hit him once. Let's see what he does.
Where
Yeah,
Oh,
does
you
he's
he?
just want to
killed
whack
me.
stuff,
You
don't
know
you?
what I mean? Like, it's just like, oh well, fuck me. Then I want to feel like an actual like badass. Like when everyone's like, yeah, have you heard about this guy? He's running around the country. No one can beat him in a fight. He's a legend. And then I'm there like going, what fucking button do I press for? Oh, now I've got to wait for him to go. Now I've missed my chance. Like it doesn't do that for me.
Where do you stand on like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, where you are the main character, but that
I
boss can hit
was
you in one shot?
I was gonna say that for Nathan because I told him to play Elden Ring, and obviously Nathan likes to feel powerful in the game, and then you get humbled immediately in Elden Ring, so it wasn't really a thing, was it?
That's the thing. Me and Brad have had many debates, and he's tried convince, and people at work have tried convincing me to play those games. The problem I have is I'm a very high stress guy, as is. So like in my natural state, I'm at 90 like already.
Nice.
So like
Yeah,
those
do not play
games
Dark Souls.
exactly. I tried it as a kid, and first control I ever broke, Dark Souls, from just gripping the fucker so hard. Like, and after that, I was like, you know what, this ain't good for me. Right? And everyone's been like, play Elden Ring, you might like it. I'm like, I know I'll like it, but will I survive?
Will you control or survive?
Yeah, it's like, will my blood pressure reach to like a level that's just like, I'll go to the doctor's like, you're already fucked. Like, there's no way you're getting back to this.
I'm sure someone's released a mod where they just like turn off dying in Elden Ring, so you can just go around and enjoy the massive fantasy world, but feel like a god.
That's the thing. If they ever release that, downloading it instantly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm there, like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. But until they really, it's just not gonna be good for my health. I'll just go nuts. I'll go crazy.
Yeah, I think when you jump onto like Elden Ring and Demon Souls and Dark Souls and stuff, like I think that's the moment when you realize how good of a gamer you really are. Because I thought I
Mm.
was pretty proficient, and then I was going onto Elden Ring and Demon Souls, and I was like, maybe I'm not. And then you see people that just like absolutely floor it. I'm like, unbelievable. I don't know.
The people that do it without leveling up and not wearing any armor, it's just like I can't do that. That's too much.
It's
It's
like
too much skill. I don't have
yeah,
that.
like every experience I've had is if I like there's a video that went viral when Elden Ring came out, where it's like some guy playing it and his commentary over it sums up my feelings whenever I play like a game like that, where it's like, this is supposed to be an RPG. What role am I playing? The fucking victim? And I'm there like, that is me.
Oh, I
That
know
is
the
me.
video. I know the video so well.
I've watched it like 100 times because I'm like, this guy has summed up every experience I've had with a game like that, where I've just been like, this is the fucking tutorial. This is like, how am I going to get past this? This gets harder from here.
Yeah.
Honestly, it drives me insane.
So I want to ask, who's your favorite dwarf character and why?
Ooh. See, obviously, as I have a slam band where we just use Gimli samples as like the lyrics, I think I do legally
I need
need
to
to
check
say
this out.
Gimli.
I haven't checked it out yet, but I need to.
Yeah, well, I think the two EPs will take you a total of about 15 minutes to get through because they're all riff, 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 Gimli sample, riff, riff, riff.
What's your favorite sample out of that? Just quickly.
Ooh. Obviously, the riff, 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 it still only counts as one, boom, 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 is a pretty good moment. That was the first one as well, so it's all been downhill from there. I actually really quite like the Hobbit films, which I know is not the correct opinion to have, but
That annoys me so much. But I'll get into that after you. Yeah.
Well, I watched them with my mum the first time I watched them all, and then whenever I was back from uni, we'd watch them together. So it's a wholesome reason, I promise. The third one,
They're fun.
I
They're
can
fun
kind of
films.
yeah, and the first two are fine. But yeah, of those, I really like Dwalin, the first one who
Yeah.
arrives at Bilbo's house. He's a badass.
He's badass and also super loyal as well. Like, at
Yeah,
first he's a bit hard, but then he becomes like very loyal to Bilbo by the end, which is like
yeah,
a good development of his character. I think the
and
Hobbit
then
films, they are sort of, a bit too much CGI, a bit rough around the
yeah.
edges for sure. But they're
If
a
you
fun
watch
film.
like the behind the scenes kind of appendices kind of like of the Hobbit and compare it to the Lord of the Rings one, you just see the difference in the filmmaking. And
Yeah.
obviously, the Lord of the Rings is a timeless classic for a reason, and the Hobbit was rushed. There's no denying it, but definitely fun. But I do wish they'd used a bit more on location, real filming.
When you look at like the BTS of like Lord of the Rings there, and even Peter Jackson, they shot it like a New Zealand short film, like the way that they did some shots, like it was all very DIY,
Yeah,
as opposed to The Hobbit, which is just loads of CGI. But I think it's looking at a different frame of mind because the Hobbit is sort of like it's like one of those fun, like almost feels nostalgic, like a lost film from your childhood.
yeah,
Lord of the Rings is it's just a fucking masterpiece. But
yeah, yeah. There's a reason you can watch those films now and be like, yeah, it hasn't aged a day. They just
I think I watch The Lord of the Rings about once a month. Like solidly, like maybe like I'll sometimes be sat there like, I don't know what to watch. And my brain just goes, you know what to watch. like, instantly, I'm like, yeah, I know what to watch. So I always pop it on. I think The Hobbit are perfectly fine films. Do you know what I mean? Like it was always going to be worse than Lord of the Rings. Let's face it. Like
yeah,
there's no way you're going to top it. And if anything, it gave me more respect for Peter Jackson because Peter Jackson just turned around and went, yeah, I didn't want to make those 3 fucking films.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, if that's your I'm not putting any effort in. What's everyone else's excuse? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're still they're still better than half the shit that's been pumped out in like the last 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I'd absolutely prefer The Hobbit over most of the Marvel stuff because that just feels so soulless to me, especially like the post Endgame stuff. And like Peter Jackson, you just watch the behind the scenes, and he's just a crazy man he's just so dishevelled and he's got no idea what's going on, and yet he just pumps out these brilliant films. It's like, what a man.
Yeah, I think like one of the best interviews I saw was someone that I think he was like a VFX director, like the guy that were running it all, and he was like, I think it was the original Lord of the Rings, and he was like, yeah, but how are we gonna do this? And Peter Jackson went, I don't fucking know. We're gonna do it. He's like, that's your job. I don't care. I just want it. Like,
yeah, one of my favorite things from Lord of the Rings is just I think Sean Bean was afraid of flying, so he had to walk up like at 7 a.m. just to get to the top of the mountain so they can do that mountain shoot. I'm just
In
like,
costume, I
what
think, as
man?
well.
In costume. I'm like, bloody hell, man.
That's
Like,
commitment.
yeah,
Yeah,
respect.
like, I'm scared of flying, but I think even I'd bite the bullet. I'd be like looking at the water, being like, "Yeah, fuck that. I'd rather just be scared for half an hour." Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd just rather be scared. Honestly, those films are genuinely amazing, and it's surprising that like Tolkien didn't like them. Like, I was genuinely surprised to hear that fact. We were like, "Yeah, I'm not a massive fan."
No. Was that
Yeah.
Christopher Tolkien?
No, it was I think he was alive during the first film, and then after I didn't like the first film, and obviously I think he passed shortly after. If I'm not mistaken, because I'm sure I heard something about how Tolkien did not like the Fellowship of the Ring.
I know his son, who obviously did all the editing of like the Silmarillion and stuff. He was famously like a grumpy man. He did not like adaptations of anything.
Well, yeah,
As
well,
well.
that's why we got like the terrible Amazon Prime show,
Oh
like
god,
about
yeah.
the Rings of Power. Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
Like,
let's not darken the podcast by talking about Rings of Power.
oh my god, I used to have like when that came out, I had daily rants with like, there's a guy that I work with who's a giant Lord of the Rings fan, and I'm like, I used to come in like, you seen that fucking shit last night? I just rant about it for like an hour on end, and our boss would be like, all right, you need to fucking get some work done now. But like, it's just such a bad show. One thing as well I wanted to ask you on the obviously on the new album, in
Yeah.
general, is the artwork. I thought really solidified like what the album sort of sounded like, the themes of the album and everything like that. What was it like sort of developing that? Did you just have like a really good album, like the artist who understood what you wanted to go for, or was it something that you was very, very involved in?
Yeah, so all the previous album artworks, I'd gone to a guy who sort of had done quite a lot of atmospheric black metal artwork before. But I don't know how familiar you are with that genre, but there's just so many like
Mm.
landscape album
Love it,
covers.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'd gone to a guy called Jordan Grimmer who did the album cover for the first Sojourner album, and he did all those the Dwarrowdelf artwork before, and I really love it, really good. And then I decided to not use it. No, because this was a very much a thematic and sort of sound departure. I thought it was good. It would be good to have quite a distinctly different art style
Yeah.
for the album. And so, what did so I went to a guy called Kalen, who he's done artwork for loads of bands, but mainly deathcore bands like Worm Shepherd and Crown Magnetar, and I think he's done some Lorna Shore stuff. All quite. It, he told me what the term was, and I've completely forgotten it. But it's all like it's supposed to be a sort of a modern take on oil paintings, and it's obviously it's all very character driven as opposed to being landscapes. And it also helps that he's a big Elden Ring fan because that was sort of some of the lyrical themes that were going on in this one. And he basically did his process was that he would create a concept based on what I wanted rather than me come at him and say, I want to have a person on a horse with a dragon, which is what I'd done on the previous artwork. I just went to him and said, look, I've got this album, it's got lyrics that are vaguely themed around this. Can you paint something? And he came up with that knight fighting the dragon theme, and I just really loved it straight away. I didn't really. I think he may have sent a couple of sketches, but sort of it was very clear from the start, like, yep, that's the idea to go with. And then he applied his own unique style to it, and it's turned out really well. I think it's quite a unique style certainly among atmospheric black metal albums.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
definitely. It's very striking as well. Like, I remember when I saw it, I'm like, that is really, really nice art. Like, I always say like bands should always, when they make album art, they should treat it as if we're still only selling vinyl. It's like, well,
Yeah,
now we need to make people want to pick this fucker up, like just from how it looks. And if I'd seen that in a shop, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that. I'm just gonna see what it sounds like. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a very, very good album, like art, and it's also it really, in a weird way, like shows what you're gonna kind of get into with the album. I feel like.
yeah. I mean, it's so many people will decide whether or not to listen to an album based on the artwork, so you can't really half-ass it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say actually, because most Fridays I'll listen to as many new albums as I can because that's like the day for new music. And partly it's like, what other bands people are talking about that day, what are people hyping about in the metal Twitter community. But
Yeah,
then it's also like, I'll look down the list and I'll be like, which album cover looks awesome. And
yeah,
your guys obviously stood out that day among all of them because there's some fucking shit artwork and there still is elsewhere. But that was also, yeah, it's like I said, the whole oil painting look and it is very Elden Ring inspired, but I guess that shows the importance as well, like that he understood your interests and he had the same interests because, someone riding a horse fighting a dragon might mean something completely different to somebody else that might not
yeah.
know the lore of what you're going for.
Yeah, and I think he was really excited to be doing a Souls Elden Ring type artwork because he'd not had the opportunity to do that before. So, sort of the fact that he was really excited with the piece he was doing, I think obviously shows through. If your artist is excited, they're going to do a good job, I think, at the end of the day.
Right.
And
Yeah,
to be fair, like sort of looking back at the previous artwork, I always wanted to commission something that wasn't just a landscape, because there's so many Atmo Black artists which just have like a picture they've nicked from the 1800s or the same sort of foresty mountain we've seen loads of times before. So I always try to make sure there's always something distinctive for those very reasons. Like it needs to look good on a vinyl, and people need to look at it and think, yeah, I want to listen to that.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Like there's so much art. Like of bands that like I've just seen and might have like not have listened to otherwise, just based on the art sort of getting me into it. Like Rotting Christ, you know, I thought when I saw their art, I thought, oh, brutal death metal band or
Mm.
something like that. And what I got wasn't that, but I didn't mind it. I'm not, I won't say it was bad. I was shocked at first, but then I'm like, you know what? Quite like Rotting Christ. It was just purely because the art kind of just like, I was like, what's that? And it's so, I think that's such an important thing that I think now people kind of don't think about too much. They'll just be like, oh, well, like we'll just pop it out. Like a lot of people get Fiverr artists and stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's all right, but like I can almost tell sometimes when someone's got like a Fiverr artist. It's like I can see what you're going for, but it's just not quite there.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's a really interesting thing.
yeah, definitely. I want to ask about, obviously we spoke a lot about your interests and stuff, but do you have any hobbies and interests that you haven't mentioned yet that, when you're not doing music that you love doing?
To be honest, between like a million different musical projects and work, I don't know when I have the time to sleep. I don't have hobbies, but gaming's obviously a big one. Elden Ring, shocking amounts of FIFA actually, or people are often surprised by. Yeah, nothing hugely interesting like being outside. I had a very nice day off a few months back where I just went on a 4 hour hike without my phone, without music, without anything. Just, well, I had some water because otherwise I'd probably die. But just like wanted to try and disconnect from everything, and that was a really good way to spend a day. But yeah, gaming, nature,
It's
music,
a good mix, yeah.
sleeping when I get the chance.
At least we're
I
finally getting
appreciate
some
the
nice weather now,
Yeah,
finally.
yeah. Where are you guys based? Like, how's the weather been for you? It's down south. It has been a very nice week.
So at Leeds, it's been nice. Rain Sunday, but all the entire week it's been really hot, and I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I appreciate the FIFA pick as well for your gaming picks because I have been playing the fuck out of FIFA like the last few
Nice.
months because I've never really played it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. And now I'm there like, look, I'm Leeds United's best player on the career mode. I've got it in the highest difficulty, and I'm scoring 30 goals a game, mate. Like,
Yeah,
and it's proper got me into that sort of mood.
it's one of those things. Like, I've got the difficulty on max, but career mode is still. I'm still winning the Champions League with Plymouth Argyle. It's it's just not realistic, but it's
It
good
gives
fun.
you like it gives you like an odd satisfaction. Like you come into work, be like, "Hey guys, you know what I did on FIFA the other night, right? Swansea Premier League, got them into the Premier League, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've been playing manager mode, sorted out some like a decent budget. Think the teams, you get really into it, and you
You
don't
do.
know
Yeah.
why you do. Like,
It's just it's very easy to unwind to as well. I think like I enjoy playing Elden Ring, but it's not
It's
relaxing
no,
for
it's not
like
enjoyable. It is, but it's not like,
yeah. But like after a long day at work, sort of coming down, plomping on the sofa, thrashing Arsenal 6-0, that's quite relaxing.
Oh yeah, I was never like a football fan until I started playing FIFA, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna keep up to date with football now because I have discovered I actually kind of like this.
Yeah,
Like,
Euros are coming up. It's going to be a big summer.
Can't wait. Yeah.
oh yeah, well, whenever Euros or the World Cup comes on, I turn into like the biggest football fan ever. I'm like, yeah, I don't think they're gonna do it. I don't think it's coming home. And then, like the minute England scores, I'm like, it's fucking coming home. I'll
Yeah.
start crying, everything.
That's the way. That is the way.
So we've got one final question for you.
Yeah.
Something that we always like to leave it, but we like to put a twist on for each band. So if you were trapped in Elden Ring, I know that Dwarrowdelf is a solo project, so we can maybe go with Battleborn. If you were with your Battleborn crewmates,
Yeah.
and you had to fight an Elden Ring boss, and you have to leave one member behind. Well, you have to leave most behind. So, sorry, completely butchering this. Right, you have to pick one member that you'd be most reliant on, and one member that you'd be least reliant on, and why.
I would least rely on Charlie, our drummer, because he has an allergy to the sun, and so he'd probably be wearing a floppy hat, and he's gonna die. He's an old man. He won't mind me saying that. Good fodder. And I would probably most rely on our other guitarist Will because he is 6'7" and built like a tank, and
Jesus
he could
Christ.
he could do all the fighting, and I'd sort of just be there. I
That's
reckon.
definitely a tank build. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
6'7".
Yeah, wearing a tank top, massive 200 greatsword, I reckon.
Yeah,
Just
definitely a
be like,
two-hander.
just on the sideline going, "You're doing great, Will.
Yeah.
You're doing great."
I'd be just like a stealth archer at the side.
Yeah, I could be like a medic or something. Just throw like
Yeah.
a supply pack or something every so often.
I found some bandages on the floor. You want
Yeah.
that?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you, nerding out about a few things. Like I
Yeah,
said, we really,
absolutely.
really enjoyed Fallen Leaves. It took me by surprise, because obviously I listened to a lot of new stuff, and I didn't really know much about you before, so I'm a huge fan now. Loved it. It's definitely one of my
Yeah,
favorites
well,
this year. So thank you.
very glad to hear it. Glad it's still being found by new people, which is always really satisfying after a release, like that it sort of it takes on a life of its own and just spreads around, which is yeah. And the reception I've had for it has been phenomenal. It's obviously an incredibly personal album, and the fact that people have loved it so much, like it's been my most successful album to date for sure. And
Yeah, it's
that's
got a lot of love.
that's very satisfying reaction to have. So yeah, just gotta somehow follow it up at some point, which is fairly daunting, but yeah, we'll get there.
Oh yeah, like I thought it was absolutely great, and for me, I'm not really much of like an atmospheric black metal sort of fan, but every single thing I'd normally look for in an album or song, it was there, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's
No
been
worries.
great.
Yeah, all the best, and yeah, see you soon. Take
Cheers.
care.